Nothing that we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
All right, what's up, everybody? Cowboy here, and the clock just ticked over. The data just came out for the unemployment data. So I wanted to go live right as it ticked over, and I'm not seeing a huge reaction in the market. Right here, we're looking at Bitcoin, and you can see that it's just real super quiet. Now, this is a 3-hour chart, so let's go ahead and move a little bit lower on the time frames down to the 30-minute chart. And again, not a lot going on, at least as relates to Bitcoin. I do want to take a brief look at USDJPY. That might give us a little bit more of an insight as to the amount of reaction being shown by the market here. And it doesn't look like there's much of a reaction. Now, I did get a little bit of data from Quantino saying that they expected the unemployment data to be above expected just by a little bit. So let's see how it came. Yep, there it was, 219, right on the dot. Wow, nice. So the AI data came out pretty strong. That's good. So 219K over 214. Now, what this means, right, as far as trading is concerned, when the unemployment claims are a little higher than expected, that's an indication of a strong economy. It might not be that strong. What I mean to say is it's an indication of a little bit more strength than expected. Okay. Wow. Let me just rephrase that. The opposite. Everything I just said, turn it around. When you have a little bit higher unemployment, that means that the economy is a little weaker than expected. So the wisdom there is that in markets, it's like, okay, we expect the dollar to see maybe an interest rate cut a little bit sooner than we expected, and therefore the dollar goes down. And when you have, like in this case, USD JPY, where the USD is the first part of the pair, USD goes down and JPY holds or goes up in comparison, then you'll see the chart move downward a little bit. And that's what we saw right here on the 5-minute chart. Just a little bit of a move down. Not much of a move down, though. That's pretty weak. To look at the algos on that, how that might play out. Yeah, I think eventually it's going to make its way down. But it's hard to say whether it's going to do that or if it's going to just kind of not do that. I mean, like, it may continue down, it might flip up. It's actually kind of in a weird spot as far as the algos are concerned. So that being said, I do expect, if I were just to map this out, looking at the condition of the higher time frames, this is bearish. And I was thinking that this dip right here might flip up, but it's not gonna, I don't think. I think it's going to actually continue down. So if I were to try to map out a trade on this, I probably would look for, if there is a pop-up, maybe a pop-up to this area right here. Let's say 153.214. So this is USDJPY. We'll come to Bitcoin in a second. Maybe a pop-up to here and then a move down, but I don't even know if we're going to see that pop-up. So if I were looking to trade this, I would either look for a breakout to the downside, say like this, and maybe a quick grab and then down. I might look for something like that. Or if we do get that pop-up to this 153.24 on the USDJPY, I might look to enter the trade right around that time. But this is a great trade. This is a better than a 3-to-1 on the downside breakout. And then on the upside breakout, let's see. Yeah, you're looking at about a 4-to-1. Depends on how you set your stops. I probably would be a little more conservative and go for a 3-to-1 only because I'd want to set stops above all this price action off to the left. So the JPY was what I was really looking at as a trade on this. And for now, I don't think that that's going to work until we see the conditions that I've pointed out, either a pull upwards. And of course, I've got algorithmic indicators and so on and so forth. So let's see here. Just sending a quick message out regarding that trade. Okay, good. So we'll see what happens with this. Keep an eye on it. Let's move back into Bitcoin. Bitcoin hanging tough. It is holding on despite So here's the thing. In this pair, it's Bitcoin versus the dollar, BTC, USDT. So in this case, if the dollar is getting a little bit weaker, meaning that, what if, let's see, USDT, okay. So we're seeing a little bit of a slide in strength. We're seeing a little bit more unemployment than expected. So if I were to analyze just based on today's data, which is pretty weak data, then the dollar would be looked at as getting weaker. Like we said, it might be that they have to cut interest rates a little bit sooner because it's like, the economy is suffering. There's less people being employed. The unemployment data is higher than expected. So we may have to go ahead and cut the rates to make up for that. And if that's the case, cutting rates means USDT, otherwise known as the dollar, in crypto terms, that's going to go down, which would cause Bitcoin to go up. So the news today would put upward pressure on price in that regard. That's the math. And it's had a little bit of upward pressure. We're looking at the 3-hour, but if I were to go down to a lower time frame, you'll notice that the 5-minute or the 30-minute candle does, it's definitely green. The 5-minute candle, which is really why the 30-minute candle is green, that's definitely a green candle, but it's not a huge influence. This is the kind of news where I think it's just going to hit, it's going to pass. I don't trade the news, even though the data I got on the news ahead of time was actually correct. For the moment, Bitcoin is in this weird, I don't want to say it's high time frame bullish, but it's got a bit of a bearish look to it in the midterm. So I think that what this might do is just hold Bitcoin where it is for a time until the market makes a decision. And the market really could go up from here or down. The market could pull down and touch 90 and just retest that low like we've been talking about the whole time. So perhaps over the next couple of days, what we might see, just take a brief look here. Yeah, see, I'm looking at kind of some short-term bullishness. So it's really just a very choppy environment. Not a great time to trade. Great time to stay away from leverage, to be honest, unless you're really a pretty adept trader in this regard. But there is a bit of a 102 resistance right here. So price might head towards that, might not even make it there. There's a local top at about 100,880. So price might kind of drag its way up there real slow and then head down. I think that's possible. Either way, though, once it kind of makes its way up here, I would have to look at the algos to see which way it's going to go. And it just seems that the markets are very slow right now. And this is the time where, as a trader, I'm kind of sitting back and looking at strategies, looking at trading, say, Forex markets or some other market right now. Because trading crypto, I mean, this is just chop. It's chop suey. And chop, unless you have a really good methodology, chop is a great way to be taken advantage of, right? So I am still in a short that I put on a few days ago. I thought I had stopped out. Turns out that my stop loss was just luckily not hit because of the platform that I'm using. I thought the stop loss was hit because I mapped it out here on TradingView on the KuCoin chart, but the actual broker that I'm using had a different stop loss, right? So fortunately, that trade is still on. And again, I may never get stopped out. We're gonna have to see how that goes. We'll look at that down the road here. But as long as price doesn't slide too high, I do think that trade will pay off, and I do think that the bottom of this hard move down going back to Sunday the 2nd is where we'll see a retest, if not a break downwards. So that's what that is. Let's take a brief look at Solana, and then we'll look at the indices. Solana following suit, and it tends to be more volatile than Bitcoin. It also, at the moment, tends to look a little more bearish than Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and take a look at the algos briefly. Yeah, definitely more bearish than Bitcoin. You have kind of this short-term bullishness, but it's not as strong as Bitcoin's. So while we might see a little bit of a pop-up, I don't expect it to do much other than range until it sort of heads down. And it might go test this bottom here at 175. I mean, Solana is pretty strong overall. So it may not make it down here, but as long as the market is uncertain, a lot of coins are going to sell off. People are going to take their profits and look to put them in a safer place, which may be as simple as the dollar or Tether or Circle or what have you. So this is a realistic chart for the next few days going into Saturday. Let's take a brief look at the indices because these are what are going to dictate a lot as far as what happens with like crypto. Of course, we had the drama with the tariffs. Now the indices are being held back up. The trade war lasted a whole day. Canada and Mexico bent the knee. I think the arrangements with China are just a little bit less severe. And I think that even though it appears that we're slapping sanctions on them and they're going to slap sanctions on us, what's the result of that, right? If you look at it from the what's the result standpoint, give me 1 second. Sorry, guys, hold on. All right. Given the result of the sanctions, like we're not going to, for example, oil, right? China's not going to buy our oil. Well, guess what? We need oil. We're looking to have cheaper energy. So if you think about it in a roundabout way, doing the sanctions on China means they're just going to buy their oil probably from Russia, and we are going to have our own oil for cheaper. So I expect whatever goes on with China right now to be more strategic, to make it look like we're playing tough while we're hitting, Canada and we're hitting Mexico, trying to get them to cooperate with us to reduce the amount of criminals coming along with the good people across the borders, because there's good people coming in from across the border. It's not legal for them to do so. And we need to figure out a way to fix that. But I'm not going to say they're all criminals. I'm not going to say they're mostly criminals. But I will say that we do have some criminals coming through the border. So we need to go ahead. 1 is too many. 5 is too many. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And that's fine. This isn't a political show. But what matters here is that it does affect economics. So if we're going to have these sanctions and stuff with China, or these tariffs with China, I don't think they're going to be harmful to the economy necessarily. I think they're going to be almost more for show, almost more of an arrangement and a deal made with China, because we have a lot of business with China. I know a lot of people think China's the bad guy. I don't think that's the case. And I do think things are stabilizing, and I think it's showing right here in the charts. Let me take a brief look at the algos. Yeah, so high time frame is relatively bullish. It's getting a little lukewarm, but the high time frame is always bullish with the indices. High time frame, super high time frame, but it is getting a little quiet. So what we might see here, if you look at the daily chart, and this is an ugly one, but it is what it is. Let me just kind of decrease some of the noise on here. I think we're going to see ranging price action with the indices for a while. I think that the market's going to stay very calm and quiet as things adjust. You can see that with the SP 500, in this case, the futures market, price is more or less rotated between about 5,800 and 6,100, the new all-time high, which was hit just last week. So I think you're going to see price attempt to break 6,150, which is the all-time high on the SP 500, and then maybe just kind of knock its head on that a little bit. And as you know, I didn't do a Sunday video because things were so wild, both in the world of politics, which was really screwing up the charts, and also personal life. I had some things to deal with, so we didn't see a Sunday video. But I do think that that's what we're going to see the next several days. I think we're going to see price kind of consolidating below the all-time high with some possible dips a little bit lower, and that will go across the indices unless we get any more surprises. And that can happen. The DeepSeek thing was a surprise. The tariffs were not a surprise, but they were a shock. The difference between a surprise and a shock. A shock just shocks the market, but it might not be that big of a surprise. Now, the Dow, I think, is also going to rotate below its all-time high. I think you have a broader range here. So between about, say, 41,800 and the top of that range is 45,200. And I do think price is going to consolidate below the top of that. So that's what I expect. Maybe some dips down to grab liquidity, and the NASDAQ will be very similar in that I think it's going to range more or less between 21,100 and its all-time high of 22,000, just below that. And you're going to see price bouncing back and forth, and it's going to be quiet for a minute. So maybe good for the range traders or the options traders who are, doing like a 1 week expiration, if there is even such a thing on those indices. So yeah, definitely I would say just be careful out there. The chop is designed to take your money, right? They make money on the turn, but right now, short term, I do expect the NASDAQ to make a run at the highs, the local highs, which is about 21,786. We are now a little over time. I spent a little more time with the public today than I normally do. So the usual thing I do for these shows is we have about 10 minutes for everybody to see, right? So for the public to actually see for 10 minutes is what we do. And then we go over to the Algo Factory Live Lab, okay, which I'm starting as we speak. And then we have our Algo Factory members, our private members come in there. We talk a lot about geopolitics. Via the Guerilla is back from all his stuff. So the last couple of weeks, he's been there almost every day answering questions about what can happen in geopolitics as it relates to markets. And of course, Via the Guerilla has an excellent handle, the best handle of anybody I personally talk to on what happens with the markets. And I back that up algorithmically. I take a look at what I think is going to happen on the charts. We match that up, and they usually match, and we are able to pretty accurately predict what's going to happen in the future of markets. And anytime you can predict the future, you're able to make money. That's what we do at Algo Factory. Come on over to algofactory.tech. We'll show you how we do it. We'll give you your ability to make your own version of that. And there's a whole psychological reason why you want to do your own version of that. And if you come to Algo Factory, we'll explain it to you. Just make sure that as you're considering what you're going to do with the markets, just never, ever, ever forget.
Join us or die.